Hey guys, this is Issues with Toddy One Skip. I am. You're not. I am. Show me some ID. What time of the day is it? What are you eating, drinking? What are you talking about? Guys, please like, subscribe, and share. We're killing it here. It's been a year, and we're killing it here. Guys, I wanted to talk to you about something that was brought to my attention, because I've got some concerned people, and I thank you for that. I got some emails, messages. So I want to clear something up. I know that Nina said that, well, let me tell you that Nina and I are exactly on the same page. Okay, Nina and I are exactly on the same page. So for those people that think that maybe Nina misspoke, she didn't misspeak anything that I said. Nick and the NPG Cornerstone Nation are affiliated. Nick knows about them. Does he know? Here's the thing that I think that I could say that Nina and I are concerned with. We know that Nick knows that NPG Cornerstone is there. We know that Nick is affiliated with them. We know that Nick knows what they say to him. We don't know the motivation behind NPG. And we want to know that. We want to know that they are actually helping Nick. And they're putting out videos that to me are teasers. And I'm not trying to say, or let me just be candid here. So Nick says that NPG speaks for him. Nick says that he supports their Fundly or their Spot Fund or whatever it is. I did a video on it. And I spoke with Nick, not verbally, but there was written communication that came from Nick. I would bet money on it. If Nick didn't write it, he told somebody what to write. He might have said, hey, I got an email from this Toddy One Skip, and this is what Toddy One Skip says. How do you want me to respond? He could have said to somebody, hey, how do you want me to respond? And somebody could have said, respond this way, and maybe he did that. Or maybe those are his own words from his own mind. We don't know. I don't know. I know that Nick got my correspondence and that Nick wrote me back. So he says that he knows about NPG Cornerstone Nation. They speak for him. He's Mr. Smiley and the Spot Fund. He knows all about that. He knows what people have told him. Just like he knew what Gypsy told him. But what Gypsy's motivation was different than what she told him. Fair enough? Yes? Right? We see that because we saw it in the interrogation 2 days later. Right? So, and we actually see it in Nick's interrogation where he starts questioning the sincerity of Gypsy. So I think what Nina and I are doing is questioning the sincerity of NPG Cornerstone Nation. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. But if I'm going to back something, I feel the same way that Nina feels. I want to vet it. I want to make sure that it's legitimate. Listen, I can help Nick by sending Nick $20 a week if I wanted to, right? I could help Nick, okay, because he's incarcerated. And the only thing he needs is luxuries because he has everything else he needs. So the only thing he needs is luxuries. But what I would like to do is see, can we help him in a bigger way? And I think that that's what's going on here, is that people are trying to find a way to help him in a bigger way. In a sincere way. Again, maybe NPG is doing that. And maybe their limit is this high. Maybe that's all they can do. Well, maybe we could get higher. Maybe together we could get higher. And maybe we can all do it together. The problem again, and the thing that's unfair to me, I don't think Nick should be walking the streets. I'm sorry. I don't think he should be. And if he gets out, he needs to be on probation. He needs to be on parole. He needs to be in some sort of halfway house. He needs to be supervised. Because Why can't he easily be manipulated again? And people know that he can be because people now know who Nicholas GODEJOHN is. So, but that's the decision, in my opinion, of the judge and of a jury. I don't think that that's going to happen, but his resentencing, the reevaluation is something that I think is something that might be doable, because the mitigating circumstances with Nick were real. The mitigating circumstances with Gypsy were make-believe. And those make-believe mitigating circumstances of Gypsy's got her 8.5 years. And the ones that Nick didn't hear, that nobody heard about in regards to Nick's mitigating circumstances, the ones that were kept stumped that people didn't know about, he's doing life. That's a problem. That to me is a problem. That to me is injustice. I think that strikes a nerve with a lot of people. A lot of people, right? We're all saying that. How could she do this? And it's like Charles Manson. I mean, Morbid, right, was calling her Gypsy Manson. Because exactly, the crime is the same. Somebody else said, there's a woman in prison, she's doing like 35 years. That's the earliest that she could even think about getting out. And supposedly, she didn't know anything about the crime, but her boyfriend committed the crime to get rid of somebody that was in the way of their love affair. There's somebody in Florida with Wade Wilson sitting on death row who had his wife, hired people to have his wife taken out. And he's on row. Gypsy 8.5 years. That's a problem. Bree, which Nina showed, is affiliated or follows or has something to do with the NPG Cornerstone. We know that Gypsy and Bree are buddy-buddy. So is that in Nick's best interest? See, what Nick might think is in his best interest might not be. And that's the concern that I think Nina and I have. And probably other content creators as well, but I'm not going to speak for them. And I'm really not going to speak for Nina. Nina and I had this conversation. We talked about it on Morbid. On Morbid's live. That we just don't know. Listen, Nick thought that Gypsy had his best interests at heart. And we all know that that's not true. So we just want to know, does this group have Nick's best interest at heart? Because to me, now I'm going to pull Nina out of this. I'm going to speak for me now. There were mitigating circumstances that got Gypsy off of that murder charge. Okay? Mitigating circumstances that weren't true. Munchausen by proxy wasn't true. The abuse that she said that her mom, that she endured at the hands of her mom with dog collars and shit like that, it's not true. Show us proof. There was nothing in any of these photos from the crime scene that showed anything other than a spoiled Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Spoiled. And she was a slob. A slob and a spoiled Gypsy Rose Blanchard. That's all that the crime scene photos showed us. And unfortunately, a very large obese woman who was unalived brutally that didn't have to be. Okay? There were fuzzy handcuffs. But, I think that was for Gypsy's actual pleasure. Maybe when she was taking on one of these personas of Ruby or Kitty or whichever crazy persona she wanted to take on at the time, because she is perverted. Listen, Nick had mitigating circumstances that weren't made up. Nick was on permanent disability. Like Nina says, Nick was on permanent disability. Our country just doesn't give out money. The country, the government, had decided after, and I mean, I'm serious, to get disability in this country, You really have to be disabled to get permanent disability in this country. Come on. So this country decided this man, Nick GODEJOHN, was incapable of taking care of himself and getting a job and being a productive member of civilization. I'm not saying that he wasn't a good member or he couldn't be a good member. I'm saying he couldn't be a productive. He couldn't take care of himself. He couldn't earn enough money to make sure that, his bills were paid. He didn't have the capacity to do that. Those mitigating circumstances were never, and those are true, those were never considered in Nick's trial. Gypsy's fake ass shit was considered, was played upon, was made into movies, as we know, and had turned somebody who unalived their mom into some sort of phenomena. That's what happened here. That's exactly what happened here. But don't think for a second, please don't think for a second that we're not trying to, don't think for a second here that we don't understand that Nick was treated unfairly. We know that Nick was treated unfairly. We just don't know if NPG is really looking out for Nick. Apparently Nick has said that even though he doesn't love Gypsy anymore, he still has love for Gypsy and he's still kind of devoted to her. Now, maybe that's okay for Nick. I don't have to support that. I'm not going to support that. And if the NPG cornerstone has that same philosophy going, I don't want to support that. It doesn't mean that I won't throw $20 in Nick's canteen, but I'm not going to support a group that is misleading him. And I can't be the person telling him he's being misled because, man, he's incarcerated. He's got a lot of people telling him that there's a lot of cons going on. Trust me, he's with people that know how to be con people, that are con people, that are criminals. So I have no doubt that he has people speaking in his ear, but if Nick doesn't want to believe something, who's going to make him believe something? Who's going to do it? So my thing is NPG really working to help Nick? Or are they making Nick believe that they're there to help Nick? And is that what Nick believes because that's what they've made him believe? That's the question. That's what I want to know. And I think that's what Nina wants to know. So that's the issue here. That's all. That's the issue here. And I have no problem with Nina saying something that I said because I know that Nina's going to say it correctly, and she did say it correctly. So, guys, but I do want you to hear some stuff here. I want you to hear some stuff that I just personally came across as far as Nick and why I believe that he does need that resentencing because, I don't know if we'll ever know what happened at that house that night. I don't know if we'll ever find out what Nick... Because I believe if Nick made a promise, he's going to stick to that promise. If he told Gypsy, I promise you, I will never... I think that Gypsy is pretty safe with what Nick has promised her. And that's too bad because I think it's clear that Gypsy doesn't give two shits about Nick GODEJOHN. I don't think she cares at all about Nick. I think she only cares about saving herself. But let's watch some of these videos and let's talk about them because they're pretty interesting. And of course, always, I never play the full video because I want you guys to go and check them out at their give them the views. But let's check these out, okay?
This is going to blow your mind. There's been long speculation that a third person was involved in the unaliving of Dee Dee Blanchard, Gypsy Rose's mother. And it's quite plausible that there was a third person. Who was the third person? Who's the man in the raincoat, Gypsy? Check this out.
I gotta tell her that. It's only in the raincoat. It's all the one that they tell her.
Okay, now slowed down a little bit.
Only in the raincoat. It's all the one that they tell her.
Who was in the raincoat, Gypsy? Was it Dan? Or was it David Blanchard? Why in Nicholas's interrogation, he said he'll apologize to everybody except Dan, and that he won't forgive Dan? What is this secret that Nicholas GODEJOHN has that he's not ready to share yet?
I try to apologize to everyone. Everyone except for Dan. Dan's the only one I'm not apologize to. So I really just want a slow kid for me. So you fight for me every bit you can. Because right now you made me take the fall. You say you're sorry. Should have realized it meant that you're gonna let me take the fall. Well, alone, good night or tonight.
What do you think, guys? What do you think? What do you think happened that night? I mean, now we have seen a picture. We have pulled ourselves away. We see it more from a higher perspective so that, you know, our distance, we could see the full picture. You know, remember I told you a long time ago there's an exercise. If you get right in front of the mirror, what can you see? But as you pull yourself away, you can see. So it's kind of like the same thing. Guys, thank you so much. I enjoyed making this video because I think that there's a lot in it. There's a lot to say. And there's a lot to, pull apart and think. Give us more to think about when it comes to Nick and how awful Gypsy is, right? Just how awful she is as a character. As somebody walking, just skipping along. All right, guys. Well, be better today than you were yesterday. Not half as good as you'll be tomorrow. Always be kind. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks, guys. Guys, you asked for them, and they have arrived. Here they are. And they say, be better today than you were yesterday, but not half as good as you'll be tomorrow. Guys, Cash App is inside my description. And, or PayPal. Also in my description. Guys, $4. $4, and I'll mail them to you. If you're out of the country, $5. Guys, just make sure that you send your address with it. You know, in the memo, you should put your address. Inside is embossed. It says Toddy One Skip.